We know that using the best available evidence to inform decisions can help ensure that those decisions make a difference to the challenges we face. But there are many barriers to using evidence, and groups all over the world are trying to address these. At the Africa Evidence Network, we believe that we can only find answers and have an impact by working together. In 2012, 23 African delegates met at an evidence conference in Bangladesh. They discovered not only their shared sense of isolation in working to support evidence-informed decision-making, but more importantly, their mutual desire to connect with others in this field from their own continent. The network's founding chair, Ruth Stewart, described the energy when these delegates recognized that together they could achieve more than they ever would achieve alone. Their agreement to share training opportunities and collaborate on funding proposals began before the delegates had even returned home. From the start, the network's impact was achieved through connections. For instance, when the network facilitated mentoring between some researchers and a team at the South African Department for Basic Education, it was such a success that other government departments requested similar mentoring relationships. A monitoring and evaluation team supporting district fisheries in rural Malawi was mentored in how to strengthen their data collection, and as a result, the Malawian district team was able to ultimately increase the output of those local fisheries. Another AEN member reported that through being connected to the evidence resources shared by the network, they were able to scale up their school feeding scheme to eventually include all 200 schools in their region. In 2014, the Africa Evidence Network held its first Pan-African Evidence event. Over 100 delegates attended from 10 African countries. That meeting would prove central to ensuring the work that had started in Bangladesh was sustained. Members described how incredible it felt to receive encouragement from others working in this field a mere 2 years after the AEN had been formally established. From across Africa, stories were shared about how evidence was needed and being used. Government colleagues made it clear that supporting evidence into policy is not an easy task. The relationships are sensitive and need serious investment to build working partnerships that span long-established divides. Still, the work continued, and by mid-2015, the AEN had 350 network members and organic engagement on its digital platforms growing every month. And the network started getting noticed by others outside of Africa. You wanted to work in the evidence space in Africa? The AEN became the go-to community, and colleagues from around the world in governments, NGOs, and universities started to reach out. Our biennial events became well-established, more innovative, and continuously better at showcasing how the African evidence community was pushing the boundaries in this field. By 2016, the network was actively encouraging and promoting evidence-informed decision-making across Africa, contributing to the development of effective public policies and efficient implementation of services. Our focus was on joint learning to support one another to use evidence to tackle poverty and equality. As the network grew, our members began hosting events across several countries: South Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Cameroon, Nigeria, and more. Each event provided a forum where participants could share lessons and advance discussions in supporting evidence use in Africa. The events increased engagement and built trusted relationships with institutions and professionals in the field. These opportunities to connect have led to work that deepens evidence-informed decision-making in Africa, such as the relationship between an evidence team in West Africa and a global evidence funder, and strengthened partnerships amongst East African researchers, government officials, and parliamentary researchers. The power of proximity to begin a relationship had already been demonstrated in the AEN's own origin story. The Secretariat knew how powerful hosting these spaces for relationships to flourish was to advancing the evidence agenda. By 2018, with the support of funding from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the AEN's evidence gatherings were reaching over 500 individuals across 32 countries through online and in-person engagements. These engagements span sectors and enable evidence producers and users to connect with one another, shifting the boundaries yet again in the evidence landscapes across the region. Recognizing the difficulty of navigating the multiple disciplines, methodologies, and sectors of the evidence field, the AEN wanted to support new and emerging leaders, so the Africa Evidence Leadership Award was launched. Winners of the award won the opportunity to showcase their work, building their own profiles and promoting the use of evidence. Over the years, winners have reported how receiving the award has helped advance their careers and invigorated them to embark on new ventures to support the use of evidence in their countries. In the network's routine collection of stories of change about how evidence makes a difference across Africa and how the AEN makes a difference to those working in the evidence space, it is not uncommon to discover examples of how these relationships have flourished. For instance, the story of Effective Basic Services Africa. This Cameroonian NGO that works to make basic services more effective by applying the available research to service delivery received an international award for their work supporting evidence use during the COVID-19 pandemic after a nomination from an AEN member. Luvuyo Jalisa, one of our emerging evidence leaders, was recently named one of the top 200 young South Africans. The way AEN members support and strengthen one another extends far beyond meeting at a conference. In 2019, a new idea to connect members emerged. The premise was the same: share members' work and make connections, although the space was a little different. All members met virtually for what became Africa Evidence Week. This virtual event, hosted on social media, showcased and promoted the use of evidence. Members volunteered and shared their experiences, challenges, and successes. Each week sees close to 1,000 people engaging in over 100 dedicated activities from organizations and individuals that span the continent. When the storm that was 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, the AEN became a conduit through which members provided evidence in response to numerous requests from policymakers and public service organizations. And that year, our evidence event went fully online, with over 600 people from 44 countries joining a fully interactive and learning experience. The AEN's virtual work had deepened since then, with online communities of practice formed and facilitated to collectively advance solutions for challenging issues. Out of such a community of practice, the network's manifesto for capacity development for evidence-informed decision-making in Africa was born. As the network, its membership and its impacts have all grown, so its influence has extended beyond Africa. The network proudly mentored and supported emerging evidence coalitions in Latin America in 2021 and 2022. The AEN's work shows no sign of slowing. In 2023, the network launched an evidence podcast where new topics are explored with a range of contributors. And the newly launched Africa Evidence Youth League is stimulating, innovating, and breaking new ground. New communities of practice are formed as members gather online to explore solutions to how to meaningfully expand the ways in which evidence is valued, to embrace forms of knowledge often overlooked, and to ensure localization of evidence use is meaningful and long-lasting. 2022 marked a decade since the 23 delegates from Africa met at that evidence conference in Bangladesh. Those first members could never have known that their meeting would result in a network of nearly 5,000 people. As evidence-informed policy in Africa continues to thrive, so too does this network, where you can connect with others also looking to make a difference. Although we do not know what the future will bring, we do know that only together will evidence-informed decision-making become a reality.